to see if I'm there. I see some people tuning in. Hello, hello. I'm just going to wait a little bit for more people to join us before I start. So this is the very first time I'm doing a live on YouTube. So I have to figure out a couple of things. Like how can I see myself on a second screen? So I'll just quickly figure that out while I'm waiting for other people to join in. There we go. And here I have it. So, hello. I see a couple of people now. Maybe somebody can write something for me so I can see that you are actually there. Oh, I see Marcia is here. Hi, Marcia. And Lisa is here from Ontario, Canada. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Beth. Gelli Arts is here. Dominique, Luann. And I see more people joining in. So, hello and welcome to the very first episode of A Date with Gelli on Valentine's Day. If you happen to just be here by accident, let me tell you a little bit about A Date with Gelli. So this is a brand new interactive show and on the Gelli Arts YouTube channel. My name is Birgit Koopsen. I'm in the Netherlands and I am a brand ambassador for Gelli Arts and I am your host. And besides me, there are some people from Gelli Arts here. Luann is here and Dominique. And also I saw that Marcia is here. They will be answering questions in the comments. I will also keep an eye on the comments and see if there is anything I can answer to. But if there are any questions that I don't get around to answer, then the people from Gelli Arts are here to help you out. So what is A Date with Gelli? A Date with Gelli is a new concept for us, and it's going to be an interactive live show once a month, and you are going to ask questions that I will answer during this show. And how does it work? Well, we will have about 2 weeks before the show airs, we will have a question button in our stories on Instagram, and you can ask questions and we pick a couple of questions and then I will answer them during the show. And why do we do it this way and not like you can ask the questions right now? Well, that is because some questions need some preparation or some answers need some preparation. And so to give you good answers, it is a good idea to have the questions in advance so I can prepare and answer all your questions. So for today, let me tell you, we have some really good questions. Besides that, we also have a giveaway. So stay tuned. Somewhere at the end of the show, I will do a giveaway. We have a really nice giveaway today. We have a 5x7 Gelli Arts plate and a brayer. And on top of that, as an extra bonus, we have a bar of soap from Florence in Italy and also some Swiss chocolates. So I cannot think of anybody who would not like to win that giveaway. So the first question I want to answer today is the question we got, how do I start? And that's a really good question. And I sometimes forget about that because it is so obvious. For everything on the gel plate is so obvious for me that I don't even think about the fact that there are people who still have to figure everything out and have to start. So here are a few tips. First of all, when you start gel printing, be prepared. Make sure you have everything you need on hand. So make sure you have your gel plate, and I prefer to have my gel plate on a sheet of white paper because or if you have a white table, then you can put it straight onto the table. But if you have like your working surface has a color, then it's better to have some white paper underneath your plate, because then you will see the actual colors of the paint or the ink or anything you put on the plate. So put it on a sheet of white paper and apply the white paper to your surface, your work surface, with some masking tape so it stays in place. What you obviously also need is a brayer. And besides that, you need a paper to print on, you need some scrap paper to clean off your brayer, and you need some tools to create texture, and you need something to clean your plate, which can be baby wipes or a damp cloth, and maybe some baby oil to remove pigments from the plate. And then, of course, you need a medium to print with. And there are many mediums you can use on the plate, from acrylic paint to stamping inks and pen pastels and alcohol inks, all kinds of mediums. But if you start gel printing, then probably the easiest medium to start with is acrylic paint. And because it's easy to work with and you get like an instant result, and so it's yeah, I think it's the easiest product to start gel printing with. And when you manage to do gel printing with acrylic paint, then you can look into other media and combine them, or experiment with different inks and paints just to see what is possible. But I would stick, when I would have to start with gel printing right now, I would stick to that one medium. And if you don't like acrylic paint or don't want to use acrylic paint, you could choose to only use, for instance, stamping inks. But stay with that one medium until you completely understand the process and how to build up layers and stuff like that before moving to other medium, because it can be very confusing. That other medium might work in a different way, and then when you mix everything, then you might get confused, and so it's better to stick with one before going to the other one. And then we have on the Gelli Arts website, www.gelliarts.com, there is a banner at the top with a couple of buttons that you can click, and one of them says Start Here. And when you click that button, you will find all kinds of tips and tricks on how to use your plate, but also links to a lot of videos that show you the basics of gel printing. So they are really good to watch when you are new to gel printing, but also if you have done it a little bit already, then still there might be some really good tips in those videos. And but you can also go here on the YouTube channel, Gelli Arts channel, to the playlist with the basics, the beginners tutorials, and watch there all the basic videos. And when you watch them and work along with them, then you will learn a lot. And finally, as far as the getting started part, I would say do it, do it, do it. Experiment, spend time doing gel printing, because it has a learning curve. You need to put time in there. You can't say, oh, this is not working for me after 2 prints. You really have to try and try and try, and then at some point it will hit you and you will totally understand how the process works, and then you are ready to take it a step further. So let me see, I wrote a couple of things down so I don't forget to mention them, as this is the first episode and I want to make sure that I do everything right. So I have put the links to the website and to the playlist on YouTube in the description under this video, so you can just go there later and click them and you will find all of the information. And I'm sure you will find some valuable information there, even if you're not new to gel printing. So that's for the question, how do I start? And then for the next question I want to answer is, what is the best way to layer colors, light to dark or dark to light? And there is not just one answer to that, because a lot of it depends on the type of paint you are using. And therefore I will turn the camera around and I will show you in which occasion you go from dark to light and in which occasion you would do it the other way around. So I'm just going to switch the camera now, and so it will face my working surface. And here I have my plate. So the plate I'm using today is the 5x5 student plate, and this one is available as a single plate. You can buy it as a single plate, but you can also buy it as a student pack. And then it has 10 of these plates in there, which are perfect if you are like a high school teacher or if you teach workshops, and you can have 10 people printing at the same time. So let me see. I already printed a couple of backgrounds because I want to print on top of these layers to show you about the different paints. And it's always best to print on a dry background, because if the paint on the background is still wet, it will be harder to pull the paint from the plate. And so it's better to work on a dry surface. And before I start printing, I am going to tell you a little bit about the paints, because to know whether or not you can start with the light color depends on whether or not the paint is opaque or translucent. So I have a variety of paints here, and if you have a more professional paint like Liquitex or Amsterdam or Winsor & Newton or Golden or Van Gogh or something like that, then you can actually see on the packaging how opaque your paint is. And if you are using craft paints, then you simply will have to try and do the steps that I will show you in a minute with your paint, so you will actually see whether or not your paint is opaque. So for instance, the Winsor & Newton Galleria one that I have here, so all of these paints have a little square somewhere on the packaging, and as you can see here, there's a little square that is black. It's a filled square, which means that this paint is opaque. Then I have here the Liquitex, and it also has a square, and it's half black and half translucent, so it's a half filled square, which means that it is semi-translucent or semi-opaque, whatever you want to call it. And then here is a little square, and it's a translucent square, and that means that the paint is also translucent. And that also goes, for instance, for the golden paint. Here is a little square, open square, and here is a half filled square, and here on the Van Gogh you see a black square. So that means that this is an opaque paint, this is a semi-opaque paint, and this is a translucent paint. So when your first layer is a dark layer, like for instance this one, and you would print with a lighter layer on top, but that layer is translucent, then it is not going to really show the color that you are using. For instance, I have a purple one here. I am going to print on top with lemon yellow, which is a translucent color. And I'm just going to roll out this paint. And I'm going to create some texture in there so you can see the color of the background and the color that goes on top. Although in this case it will not be a really great contrast because this is translucent color. So now I'm going to print the yellow on top of the purple. And that's not even too bad. So I expected it to be not as good as it is, although the yellow is not as bright as the original color. And I will do it the other way around on the yellow, and you might be able to see that the yellow that is already on the paper is going to be much brighter than the yellow on this one. And I'm just going to clean my plate real quick. So I'm going to use a baby wipe. It also probably might depends on the colors that you are using. Some colors are, if they have less contrast, then it will be not as good as this one probably. But I'm actually really amazed about how well this turned out. But you can see here at the edge that the yellow is supposed to be much brighter, and that is because the purple that's already on the background shines through the translucent yellow. Now, if I would put the purple on top of the yellow, which I'm going to do now, you will see the difference in brightness, especially of the yellow color. So I'm going to use that same Gelli Arts mini printing tool to create that texture. And I'm just going to use it to remove some paint. I'm just wiping away the paint basically. And now I'm going to put this one on top and then pull it up. And now you can see that the yellow, you can see the difference, that the yellow in this one is much brighter than the yellow in this one. And that's because I put on the bright color first. This is also the reason why I usually start with the lighter colors when I do printing, because the lighter colors often are more translucent, and when you put them on a white background, they keep their brightness. So it's always better to put them on in the first layer, because then the background where they are printed on is still white and the brightness comes out better, and then it's easier to put darker colors on top and keep the brightness of the first colors in the open areas. I hope that that makes sense. But that said, I usually don't really look at how opaque my colors are. I am very much go with the flow person, and let's just see what comes out. And I like to be surprised, and I just pick my colors based on if I like them and want to use them. And I don't look at every tube before I use it to see whether or not it's opaque. But of course there can be reasons or a special way of printing that you really want to know whether or not your paints are opaque. So then this is the way to go. And here I have a pale yellow color that is an opaque color, as it said on the tube. And I'm going to print that on my blue background to show you what happens then. So here we go. And as you can see, it gives a really nice contrast, and it is pretty opaque. As you can also see, I still have some paint left on the plate, so I might have rubbed a little bit more to pick up more of the paint. But yeah, that's basically how you can determine whether if you want to start with a light color or rather start with a dark color. So the next question, and while we are here printing anyway, let's go to another one that I can actually demo. The next question was, let me see, somebody who said, how do I have trouble picking up a print with several layers. So when you have several layers on your plate, built up on your plate, and you want to pull all of them in at once, then that can be a difficult thing, especially because most of the time when you work in layers, when you build up layers on your plate, you let them dry in between. And pulling dried paint from the plate needs a special way of doing it. It's not as simple as pulling wet paint from the plate. So I have prepared 2 plates this afternoon because it takes a while before you have layers built up on the plate with the drying time in between. And I didn't want you to watch paint dry. So I prepared these this afternoon. As you can see, they have several layers on top of each other. Different textures, different colors. There are little blocks of solid color, and there are little areas where there are open areas. And I have, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 layers on top of each other. And now I want to pull those in a print. So how do I do it? This is not only for multiple layers, but this goes in general for pulling dried paint from the plate. And I like to use white paint to pull my prints. That's just a preference, but you could use any color to pull a print, so you don't have to do it with white. If you want to add an extra color to these backgrounds, you can totally do that. You could use a light green or pink or whatever to pull this up, but you have to keep in mind, for instance, here you can see that the yellow here is quite translucent. If I would use a darker color to pull this print, then the yellow would lose its brightness. And when I use white to pull this print, then I will keep the original colors. That's probably also why I prefer to use white to pull a print. Now there are 2 ways to do this. First is pulling the print with a wet layer of paint. And you really have to be careful that the layer of paint you use to pull the print is really, really thin. And if you have watched some of my tutorials before, you know that I always say this, and but I can't say it enough. If you use too much paint in this layer, you will not be able to pull dried paint from the plate, especially if you have several layers there. So because if I have a thick layer of paint and I put my paper on top and lift it up, my paper will only be able to lift up the top layer, the top of that wet paint. and it will not be able to also pull the dried paint underneath. And if you have like a really thin layer of paint, then it's also going to pull up the dried layer that's already on the plate. I can't tell you exactly how much paint you need, because it depends on a lot of things. It depends on which brand of paint you use, how the consistency of the paint is. Is it a thick paint or a more liquid paint? How are the circumstances in your room? Is it like really warm or really dry? Does the paint dry really quickly or stays it wet really long? There are so many reasons, so many things that can influence the amount of paint that you need, that you really have to experiment for yourself to find the right amount. But I can tell you, once you discovered about how much paint you need, then you will usually get a really good print this way. And I usually really look at, when I brayer off my paint, once I start seeing my design, my dried paint shining through my white paint, then I usually have the right amount. And then I put my paper down and I rub very well. Make sure that I rub every little corner. But even if you kind of master this way of pulling prints, then still sometimes it just doesn't really pull everything completely, and you might get little areas where you didn't get a perfect print, or where some of the paint stays behind. That really sometimes happens. In this case, as you can see, I was able to pull all of the paint. So here I have my first multi-layered print that I pulled in one go. So that's with the really thin layer of paint. And what I have to say about this technique is, even though you need a really thin layer of paint, you also have to make sure that the layer is still wet when you put the paper on, because if you make the layer so thin that the paint dries before you can put the paper on, then you will still not be able to pull that print. Now, if you have tried this over and over and over, and you are just not able to do it this way, then there is another way that is a little bit easier, but you need a little bit more patience to do it that way. So here I have the second one, and again I'm going to add some paint. And for this one, it is a little bit less important how much paint I put on there. So if you have a hard time to determine how much paint you need, and for instance, you have something on your plate that you are really, really happy about, and you really don't want to mess up pulling the print, and you want to be absolutely sure that you pick up all of the paint from the plate, then you can do it this way. And as I said, it's less important how thick that layer of paint is, because this time I'm going to leave my paper on until my plate is completely dry, until everything on the plate, all of the paint, including the pickup layer, are dry. So I'm keeping my paper on there. Once everything is dry and you pull up the paper, everything will come off. But you have to be a little bit more patient, because it takes a couple of minutes for everything to dry. You have to think a little bit, when you do it this way, about the paper you use. If you have like really soft paper, usually it's paper with a lot of I don't know the English word for it now, but it's usually a little bit more textured, and it tears very easily. It's like really soft. You get also, when you tear it, you get like really soft edges. that kind of paper might tear when you pull it up and the paint is not completely dry. So if you want to leave your paper to dry on the plate, you have to make sure that you have very more compressed paper, something like, for instance, copier paper. Copier paper is perfect for gel printing, but cardstock is not so good for doing this technique where you leave the paper to dry. Or for instance, older books have like really soft paper too, and that also really easily tears. But you might be surprised that tissue paper, for instance, is really good to pull up from the plate. When the paint is dry, you just have to be a bit careful not to pull it up too quickly. But this has to dry, so I'm going to leave it a little bit longer, and I'm just going to scroll through the comments real quick to see if there is anything else that I can answer right now. Okay, I think everything is under control in the comments, and if when I finish this video, I will go through the comments again and see if there's anything that I can answer afterwards. So I'm just going to wait a little bit more, and while I'm waiting, I'm going to tell you already what the next question is. And the next question was what to do with all my gel prints. And that's a really good question, because once you've started, once you are addicted to gel printing, before you know it, you will be surrounded by piles and piles of pretty papers. And I totally get it that some people really don't know what to do with their papers. So after I've put this print, I will get out some of my work in which I used my gel prints and show you what you can use your gel prints for. And then, of course, I'm also going to do the giveaway. So make sure to stay a little while longer, and because you might be the lucky winner. So I think I've waited long enough. But if you are doing this at home, what you could do is kind of pull up one corner and see if the paint is dry. And if everything is dry, then you can just go on and remove all of the paper. And so this is my second multi-layered print. And as you can see, my plate is completely clean, which means that all of the paint was pulled. So these are the two ways to pull up multiple layers from the plate. And I hope that answered the question of the person that sent in this question, and hopefully some more of you were helped with this question too. And now I am going to turn the camera again and tell you a little bit about the things I use my my gel prints for. So let's do this. And here I am again. And I have a little basket here with a bunch of things that I use my gel prints in. So most of my gel prints are being used as collage material. And that means that they can become backgrounds in my art journals, or they can actually be the pages of my art journals. And what I really like to do is create my own journals from gel prints, and then I have like something on every page already that I can work on. Like I have no blank pages. I have So I don't have to have the fear of a blank page, because there's something there already. So I also have a tutorial on the Gelli Arts YouTube channel that I forgot to put the link in the description, but I will do that later. I like to make these books. So these are they look a little bit like the children's block books. And to create these books, I print on watercolor paper or really heavy copier paper, like the heaviest copier paper that I can find. I'm just going to move the camera a little bit. So what I do is I have a lot of prints and I bind them together into a book, and then I can work on the backgrounds. And let me find a book that I actually worked in. I can work on the backgrounds and create art journal pages on the gel printed background. So I can add a drawing, I can add stamping, I can add more texture and create an art journal page, because nobody says that your gel print has to be the final thing. I mean, it's not like when you have done your print, then that has to be the final piece of art. It can be. You can totally create a completed piece of art on the gel plate, but you don't have to. You can use your papers for all kinds of other things, like art journaling. So that's one thing. So I will put the link in the description showing you how you can create these books. And I also do that with, for instance, tags. So I also really like to gel print on shipping tags, shipping labels, and create little books with the labels. And there's also a tutorial on the channel showing you how to create a journal like this. And then again, the backgrounds will be you can work further on the backgrounds and create art journal pages on them. So that's for the little journals. Or you can do it a journal more junk journal style, and you can combine a variety of papers and tags and bind them together to a tiny little junk journal, and combine them also with different papers. They don't all have to be gel printed papers, but it's fun to combine them, the different papers. I've also done that here. I have here a little accordion book that I don't know if you can see it, but I combined a gel print with pattern paper and music paper, and these are gel prints again, but I also have some book paper or magazine paper, even black and white pictures from a magazine, also some tryouts for hand lettering, and putting them all together into a little accordion book that then can be used as an art journal. I also sometimes just cut them into a rectangle, add a little sentiment and a piece of ribbon or a piece of thread, and they become bookmarks. So it's a really fun and easy way to create a little gift for somebody. And I like to use my sewing machine and just sew around the edges to give them a little bit extra. Also, I can just cut out or die cut shapes from a variety of gel prints, and then create something like this, for instance. So the hearts, but also the circles, were all cut from gel prints with a variety of colors and a variety of textures, which I think is always fun to combine. And but you can also make a collage, for instance, like this, and use that to paint on top and cover up some parts, and then some of the parts of the gel prints and the other papers that you use for the collage will be visible. And another, this is a class I did for Michael, so you will also find that on the YouTube channel. But make little notebooks just by using one of your gel prints on heavy paper as a cover, and add paper inside, like drawing paper or sketchbook paper or something like that, and have a fun little journal. And let me see, there is more. Yeah, like I said, you can also create a completed piece of art. So you can build up layers of gel printing and incorporate, for instance, the image transfers that are so trendy right now, and create something that you could actually frame and hang on your wall, like this or this, but also more something that looks more like a painting, and frame that and hang it to your wall. And of course, I don't have them here because I'm not really a card maker, and the cards that I made all I all sent in for a show. But of course you can use the gel prints also to create backgrounds for your cards if you are a card maker. I also really like to cut out shapes or stamp on a colorful gel printed background, and then cut them out and use the stamped images like leaves or hearts or butterflies or things like that. And they have color right away, and then you cut them out and can use them in on your cards or in your art journal. So for the giveaway, you will have to type in the answer. I will ask a question, you will have to type in the answer. So make sure that you are ready to type on the device that you are watching on. And I'm going to ask a question, and the first person to type in the right answer will get the giveaway. And as I said before, but maybe you were not here, the giveaway is a 5x7 gel plate, a brayer, a piece of soap from Italy, a bar of soap from Florence in Italy, and some Swiss chocolate. So are you all ready to play? The question is, what is the biggest available gel plate that Gelli Arts is offering? The biggest, what is the size of the biggest gel plate available? And if you know the answer, you can type it in right now. And the first one that I see giving the right answer is the winner. I don't see the right answer yet. Yes, there it is. Ancient Path Follower 77 said 16 by 20 inches, which is the right answer. So you are the winner, and please contact Gelli Arts by email and give them your address, and they will make sure that it will be sent to you. So that's it for today. And before I say goodbye, I would like to tell you that the next date with Gelli is next month on March 14. And it will be all about printing on fabric, and with fabric. So you can ask us all of your questions regarding printing with or on fabric about 2 weeks before the show. The question button will be available in the stories on Instagram, so make sure to follow us on Instagram, and you can ask your question and it might get answered in the next show. And I hope to see you again next month, same place, same time. And for now, I wish you a wonderful day and hope to see you soon again. Bye bye. Bye.